In 1828, William Dawson wrote a will, and he left money and other bequests to more than 30 people. The recipients of his estate were brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and occasionally he didn't name everybody, but he would, for example, say, the 5 children of my sister Elizabeth Green. Then he also left money to people I don't even recognize, and there's no relationship stated. So I can't just expand the tree based on what's written in the will. There's a lot of additional research that needs to be done. So the whole thing becomes pretty messy, especially when trying to identify who's who and how they're connected. So let's look at the evidence. The original will looks like this. It's very long. The individual lines are extremely long. I'll zoom out so you can see. And currently every beneficiary is in Airtable. So everyone that he's named, their relationship, their location, if it was provided, and occupation. I'm tracking the ones that I'm working on as either proven, as in I've verified them, this person exists, and they're in the tree now. I have them as probable if I'm still working on it, or I'm just waiting on a little bit more evidence. And then I have parked, and that is anybody who I'm not finding enough information to be sure about who they are. So I'm just going to leave them alone for now, and we'll come back to them at some point. The will itself was written in December 1828, about a year after he got married for the second time, and he died in 1834. So he was about 79 when he wrote the will. I don't want to make any assumptions about his memory, but what I do know is he probably didn't spend time with everybody, so that's why some of those details are a little bit vague. The question I'm answering today is this will enough of a scaffold to build out a family tree, or how much additional research is going to be needed? So the first thing is to get all of the information out of the will that's really relevant to constructing a family tree. So the original format was a single document, and I had all of the relevant details, but it got too messy, and I started to find that if I wanted to add additional notes, it was difficult to consistently separate it from what was originally written. And then as well, I wanted to see if I could connect people, to see if, well, for example, did all of the sisters receive similar amounts? But there was no way to, efficiently sort and filter and things like that. Just what a spreadsheet would do, right? And also in an ideal world, I wanted to add notes about what I knew about each person and also whether they're already in my family tree. Because to be honest, a lot of a lot of his siblings were, because I already had their baptisms. So I knew they existed at some point, but especially for the women, if they got married, I didn't know what their surnames were after they got married. So here's how it works out now. So we have one Airtable record per beneficiary, name, relationship, all of that information, exactly as William stated. But then I also have some additional structured fields where I'm putting in my interpretation and what I'm learning. It's funny because some of his entries were really precise, like niece Anne Hurst, wife of blank Hurst of Epworth, Lincolnshire, farmer. Well, okay, he didn't know the first name, but Hurst and Epworth are pretty well. The fact that he's a farmer, there's going to be other records, no problem. And I have since very much identified that Anne. Yeah, others were very vague, like 5 children of my niece Elizabeth Green. I wanted to create a space for each of those people so that I could then go on to identify them and then mark them as proven or probable. And I do know that William was 79 years old when he wrote this, so he'd been living in London since at least 1800, maybe longer. I also haven't found any evidence that he returned to Yorkshire for visits. A good portion of the family remained in Yorkshire, but yeah, quite a few ended up in London as well. But aside from the ones I know that he was really tight with, I can't assume that he stayed in close contact with any of them. So I can't assume that everything is accurate. So yeah, here's where the fun begins. Next, I started comparing what the will was claiming versus what I already had researched previously that's in my family tree, and then closing those gaps using traditional genealogy research. And for each beneficiary, I was checking that their location matched. Did their occupations show up in any directories, also in any parish registers? Oftentimes, not always, but the occupation would show up in children's baptisms and, burials and marriages. I looked for the marriages. I wanted to make sure that the surname of a woman that I didn't recognize had a matching husband, and that was all fairly straightforward, but I did hit a few snags. The easiest one was one of his nieces, Anne Hurst. So I found her easily in 1841 through 1881 census records, and that's virtually unheard of when you start getting into some of these families because they moved around a lot. And I know that she was married to Robert Hurst, who was a farmer. So fine, all good. So she's definitely proven. Some of the others were more tricky. So William left £100 to the children of half-sister Elizabeth Wood, now or late of Paul Wood. So that phrasing confused me because it sounded almost as if Paul Wood was a place, but I have since worked out it means that she was married to Paul Wood when William wrote the will, but he perhaps wasn't sure if they were still married, perhaps if Paul had passed away. I did find an Elizabeth married to a Paul Wood in October 1764, but the record says she was already a widow. In fact, her surname when she got married was also Wood. So, who was her first husband? And I go backwards in time, found a John Wood buried, age 26, in August 1763, same village, Ackworth. What I don't know for sure is the relationship between John Wood and Paul Wood. One could assume they were brothers, but it could easily be uncle, nephew, cousins. There's lots of possibilities, so I'm not jumping at any conclusions. I've marked John as probable. He is probably the brother, but I haven't had the time to go back and check yet. And I do know that from the baptisms that Elizabeth had several children with Paul Wood and at least one with John, but there could be others. If I can't prove it, then it stays as probable or parked until I find more evidence. Another example is Isaac Dawson, William's nephew, because I just simply couldn't work out where he went. And when a lot of these people were around, this was pre-census. It never occurred to me until later I found that there was more London connections, that people did actually move around. There's this great assumption that people didn't go very far, but I can tell you in my tree they did. I did find a man that was the right age in Worcestershire, and then later seemed to be the same person in London. And I couldn't be sure, but then I found this administration registry, and lo and behold, Anne Hurst, our friend Anne Hurst of Epworth, is listed as sister and next of kin. So I haven't ordered the will yet, but I'm really excited that there's this connection here another connection between London and Yorkshire. Although she was in Lincolnshire. Wait, Lincolnshire. Okay. So step 3 is obviously you have to draw the line. At some point you've exhausted all your possibilities and things just have to be put on hold until you can come back to them or you find more time. Honestly, one of the best things is just letting time pass. And in that time, a lot more records have come online. Or maybe you get a chance to go to the archives because that is also a fabulous, fabulous option. A lot of the people, there isn't a relationship stated, so I am making progress. But for example, I know that Mary Pritchard, wife of James Pritchard of Crown Court in Golden Lane, Barbican. Crown Court almost certainly connected to some sort of brewery. Originally, I thought it was some kind of legal establishment, but it's not. So coming back to that one. One of my ongoing questions is who was William's first wife? Because when he married, he was a widow. So I'm going to come back to them with the idea that perhaps there's a connection with his first wife, potentially. So the verdict is that William's will is a very reliable scaffold. I would say that it's definitely not a tidy, complete picture. Any of these documents, they were written at a point in time and they might be referencing people and events from a while back. But I'm using it to guide my search. It's definitely been pretty helpful so far. A few names misspelled. Oh my gosh. The name Reed, R-E-A-D, was actually R-E-E-D in almost all the records, and that's a subject of a whole other video because it's fascinating, involving people going back and forth to Australia and setting up establishments over there. So at present, I have 69 individuals that are from the will. So I'm counting, like I said, I'm counting if it's 5 children, then I'm counting them as 5 individuals. So 69 people are in the document. One of the great things about Airtable is that these visuals are automatically updated as you do your work. So my next case file, I'm going to be digging deep into parish registers. So I'll see you there.